Hello and welcome to our special event. Here at the Watkins Museum of History, we are partnering with the Raven Bookstore and other organizations in Lawrence for the Paper Plains Literary Festival, happening live for the first time in the few years that the festival has been going on. So to get the full festival lineup and scheduling, visit paperplains.org. Today, I'm excited to welcome two amazing artists into our online studio. In connection with Paper Plains, we've invited Megan Kaminski and L. Ann Wheeler to discuss their new collaborative project, Prairie Divination. So hello, Megan and Lesley. Nice to have you with us today.
I will.
Hi.
Hi. So to quote from some of the publicity material for Prairie Divination, quote, "An oracle deck and guidebook, Prairie Divination turns to the plants, animals, and geological features of the tallgrass prairie ecosystem as a source for knowledge and inspiration for living in this world and to realign thinking towards kinship and sustainability," unquote. Now that's a pretty good description, but of course, let's hear more from the creative minds behind this unique project. So Megan and Lesley, I wonder if you could start us off by telling us a little about yourselves, like your backgrounds, your artistic careers, perhaps how you first decided to create nature-themed projects. So Lesley, would you like to start?
Sure. So I'm Lesley. I am a KU grad, and this is how I met Megan. She was my advisor and friend. And I'm in Los Angeles now, and I've been an artist pretty much my whole career, going back to art school. But actually, it was Megan who was the wellspring of this idea, and she asked me to be a part of it. Megan, do you want to talk a little bit about the event that gave rise to Prairie Divination?
Sure. Well, goodness. I've been always, since I was very little, felt a real connection to the natural world and to plants and animals and thinking about them as my friends and as my teachers. And so this was kind of always going on in my work and in my thinking. And I got asked to do a project to make a presentation for the Hall Center's Haunting Humanities event. And I was trying to think about what I would want to do and was stumped for a little bit. And then I just had this idea, and I half expected them to say no. But my idea was accepted, and I was talking to Lesley about it. I was like, I just, came up with this big idea of an oracle deck about the tallgrass prairie, and I'm so excited, but I have no idea what's going to happen in terms of the art, in terms of the cards themselves. And Lesley was like, count me in. That sounds great. So that's kind of how the actual project came together. But it was an extension of work I've been doing since I first moved to Lawrence, almost 15 years ago now. And that was getting to know this place and getting to know how to be here and how to make a home here through interacting with the natural world, from taking cues and learning from the way that the native plants and animals lived in the world and in relationship with each other, and using that as a starting point to think about myself as a member of the larger ecosystem.
That's great. So I want to know, could you get a little bit more in depth about the whole idea for Prairie Divination? Like, how did you actually come up with the idea of doing an oracle deck as opposed to just writing a book of essays or poems, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So I'm primarily a poet. I was doing research on prairie plants and animals and collaborating with Kelly Kincher, who's an amazing ethnobotanist, and convincing him to take me out into the prairie and introduce me to prairie plants, and also talking with Carrie Wessinger, who was a postdoc and now is a professor at the University of South Carolina, but talking to her about her research in evolutionary biology and studying plants and floral pollinator syndrome and all these kind of more technical things. So I was doing all this research thinking that I'd write poems. And I love writing poems, and poems, I don't know, poetry definitely has a larger audience than the typical kind of academic writing. But I really wanted to think about how I could make something that honored the collaborative spirit that I felt like I had with the plants and animals, learning from them and thinking about us being in conversation. So I wanted to create something that would put my audience and my readers in conversation too. So there's something very collaborative about just the act of doing readings from an oracle deck for other people. But you're also collaborating. You're collaborating with the cards themselves. There's a sense of interaction that's maybe not the same as when you're reading a poem, where it feels like something's given to you and you receive it and you listen to it, but there's something more interactive in using the deck to kind of tell the future, to answer the big questions in your life. And in that spirit of collaboration, it also became a super collaborative project once Lesley and I started working with each other on the project. So yeah.
That's great. So I'd like to hear more about how this works exactly. So how are the Oracle deck and the book of essays meant to be used? Like, are they meant to be used in conjunction? Is the book of essays meant to be used separately? But just like, can you both walk us into how this works? And if you would like to use me as an example, by all means.
Well, do you want me to go, or do you want to go, Lesley?
I was just going to say the word collaboration kind of like shines through all of it, because in the same way that Megan and I collaborated on this whole thing, the deck and the book are kind of a collaboration as well. And so the essays that Megan wrote kind of, they can stand on their own as far as being informative and insightful, but they also help to parlay the messages that the cards have and explain what's in front of you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So, but to answer your question and how you use the deck, and thinking about what an oracle deck is, maybe. So maybe it would be useful to start with thinking about what divination is and why we have practices of divination. So divination is a series of practices, of ceremonies, of traditions that for interacting with and understanding, getting a sense for how to navigate the unknown, for how to navigate uncertainty. So there's this way in which there's so many different knowledge traditions. And this was something that was really important to me as someone who's really severed from my ancestral knowledge traditions through displacement, through family, historical and family violences. So I don't really know what my ancestors, how they grappled with the unknown. But there are all these guides. I guess so that's why I turned to the plants and animals. But now I'm digressing. I'm sorry. I'm a Gemini, and there's so much information. But the idea is how to grapple with uncertainty, how to figure out the things that are bigger than us in the world, and how to look for clues. And our deck looks to the natural world for this. So
interesting. So should we do a little role play or try to use the deck and see how that goes?
I think we want to do a serious reading for you,
Sure,
Will, if you're
definitely.
up for it. Do you have a question for us?
Well, I'll admit I'm a little nervous because I've never done a reading before, but no time like the present.
This is a pretty kind deck, I have to say.
Well, that's comforting. Yeah. All right. So what do I do? What do I do? How do I do this?
So you're going to ask the deck a question. Okay. So you could ask for some kind of guidance. What do you think, Lesley? You want to guide Will? I'm shuffling. You want to guide him and asking?
Maybe a good first question, especially in like a public forum, maybe something about like what the weekend holds or um, the evening if you want to get more specific, but that might be a nice temporal kind of question to ask.
You're
Unless
also
there's something
welcome.
deeper that you want to get into, which that's okay too.
Yes, you're also welcome to, maintain your privacy and say if you have a dilemma that you'd like guidance on. We don't have to know what that dilemma is to use the deck
Yeah.
to give you advice.
Well, we all have many dilemmas, and I would like some guidance on them, but I'll try and keep it a little bit light for this event. So I will ask the oracle. Let me see. Will I have a chance to work with the animal in my life on making her more sociable with other people?
Oh, that's a very good question.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the deck that question. I'm going to infuse the energies of that question into the deck. So to give you guidance. And let me see. All right, so I'm going to do a 3-card spread for you, Will.
Okay.
With the first card, ooh, this is interesting. All right, so the first card is going to give us guidance on the more general situation. The second card is going to give us a taste of maybe what's going to be coming into your life, maybe some methods, some approaches that you might see. And then the third one is more like more generally how to go about it on your end, like how, yes. So,
Okay.
yes. So the first card I pulled, which is kind of hilarious. I think Rita might have been influencing this. This is Leslie's dog, who's Chihuahua.
Yeah.
The first card we pulled for you is the Masaga rattlesnake, which is elusive. Or elusive. Let it be.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I really love this card. One of the things that people are afraid of rattlesnakes, right? They're scary. We're afraid of them biting us. But rattlesnakes are really gentle creatures. They do not look for conflict. They're not aggressive. When they do bite people, it's because they feel very vulnerable and they feel very threatened, right?
Yeah.
So when the rattlesnake card comes into your life, it's a sign that maybe, first of all, you should look at your own vulnerabilities, but also maybe who you're interacting with. What vulnerabilities does your dog have, perhaps, that are causing them not to be sociable in the ways, and maybe to look for those vulnerabilities, right, as a source and see them not as aggression, but see them maybe as needing some more support or needing a little more space, or I don't know. Do you have any thoughts? Does this resonate with you in any way? Or Leslie, do you have anything you want to add as a
Leslie, go ahead
and the dogs?
Oh no, I think, I mean, as far as what you were saying about them actually being like peaceable creatures who aren't looking for conflict, I think that says a lot about the situation. And that's my main thought when I look at it too. Like it's not trying to get you in that picture. It's just kind of doing its own thing.
Yeah, this card really speaks to me and to my situation, I think, because there have been times when I've been walking my dog around the neighborhood and she loves people, but she doesn't know, she's a pit bull Rottweiler mix, and she doesn't know her own strength or what she really looks like, or how she looks to people that don't know her. So when I see somebody who I'd like to get better acquainted with, like a potential friend or somebody that I see around campus occasionally or around town, I'll be like, hello, and I'll try to be friendly. And my dog is also saying hello, but she does it in a way where she lunges at the person. And the person more likely than not will be like, whoa, and I've been marked in their head for all time as the guy with the scary dog, probably. But of course, it's not my dog's fault. She's a sweet creature, and she has vulnerabilities, and she doesn't. Why would she know how to express herself best with these strange bipedal creatures that have their own culture and their own rituals, So, and by having her cooped up in the house by herself for much of the day, I mean, I'm not giving her the attention and the support that she needs to really
and this comes
be
into,
sociable in a way that humans think is proper,
And this comes into the next card, I think.
Oh.
I think you set us up for limestone and flint structure. So thinking about the things that maybe need to come in to answer this question, right? Or to work on this. We're thinking about limestone and flint. And the limestone and flint and the Flint Hills are the rocks that provide the structure. And they're actually the reason why the tallgrass prairie still exists in the Flint Hills, because all of the rocks in that area made it so that the land wasn't well suited for tilling, for being turned into, places for agricultural production. So that's kind of the thing it's the thing that preserved this unique ecosystem for us in Kansas in the Flint Hills. And from the entry, the essay in the book, it says, when this card comes into your life, it asks you to examine the underlying structures of your existence. What geologies, institutions, beliefs, and communities provide structure to your world? What structures will surely outlast you? And how can you flourish within or at the margins of their rocky outcroppings? Well, the only constant in life is change. There are some things that change more slowly than others and will not yield to your will.
Yeah. That feels pretty apt right there. Yeah. That's interesting. So what's the third card, Megan?
The third card, I think this is a good one for you.
Okay.
So this is the lead plant, and the lead plant is a survivor. So the lead plant has, like many prairie plants, has really deep roots that allow them to survive prairie fires and times of drought. And even after really tough winters, when they die back all the way to the ground, they've got these long roots, right, that keep them going. Yeah. I like this too. And this is from the essay. This card speaks to inner strength and your capacity to overcome any obstacle. With perseverance and stamina, you can endure all of the challenges that come your way. Now is the time to tap into your great store of patience and determination. Commit to what you need to do and take the steps to do it with composure and maturity. I think the lead plant is cheering you guys on.
Yeah. Well, composure and maturity, it does feel like this is speaking directly to me as the things that I need to be more aware of or try to possess. But yeah, so what I'm seeing here is that, and of course, you guys are the experts, so feel free to interpret this for me as well, is that, yeah, I need to be aware of the vulnerabilities that my companion has that are not her fault, and to work toward her strengths as a friendly being that wants to engage with people, but also really think about having the persistence and the perseverance and the patience to work with her to become more sociable around humans. So, yeah.
Do you want to add anything, Lesley?
No, I've just been thinking about how is this your first reading, Will, of anything?
It is.
Yeah, and so I think thank you for letting us do that for you. And it can be kind of scary, I think, because I think there's an assumption that these things like tell the future or will lay out exactly something that's going to happen. But I think it's more that they offer some what ifs or potentials or things to think about. And so I'm glad that this reading was kind of exemplary of that, right? It's not like this is going to foretell exactly how things will play out, but instead just offer stuff to think about.
And I think if I could jump in, I think that there is a greater power at work here, because some of these problems have shown themselves when I was actually in remnants of the tallgrass prairie. Like, for example, when we've been walking around some of the nature sites, or I shouldn't call them sites, but some of the natural spots around Lawrence in Douglas County and even farther afield. and people have come by and been like little kids have been like, "Can I pet your dog?" And my dog just like jumps jumps on them and gets all wild, and the kid is like scared and tries to run away. So, and this is happening right on the tall grass prairie. So could it be any more apropos to my situation here, you know? So I really appreciate this look into how this guidebook and this oracle can really give us insights into playing to the strengths of the and listening to the natural forces around us, and being really respectful and feeling like a collaborator with nature, as opposed to being like just being above it or just working it to your own ends. Definitely. And I really feel like animals, or other animals besides humans, right? Like my dog, they have a better understanding of these things often than people like I do. So that's really excellent.
Yeah, I mean, part of this is these are animals that live. I mean, the rattlesnake lives in the in wetland areas, so probably not like hanging out in your backyard. But a lot of these live right in and are around us. And this, I love to see this as an introduction. And yeah, and I love Teresa's comment, which just flashed up and then disappeared for me. But about the cards giving us these openings through metaphor, right, to look at ourselves differently. And I think in doing that in relation, right, with others, and thinking about ourselves as less isolated, which really was one of kind of the themes, I think, well, Lesley and I were working on this project. We started it, almost 5 years ago, Lesley? Is that right?
Yeah.
We started a while ago, but we really worked on this during the pandemic. Well, we were all in lockdown, and, you know, there was this sense where it felt really urgent for me to be writing these essays and thinking about the ways in which I felt very much alone. But also when I went out into my backyard and tended to the plants in my backyard and was observing the animals, and a lot of these plants I grow, thanks to Kelly, I'm growing in my backyard now too. So really establishing these relationships with them made me realize how much I was part of community, and how much I was a part of the community with the more than human world. And in those acts of care and those acts of attention, I felt so much less alone and so much more a part of something bigger than myself. So I tried to really put those into the essays. And as I was sending them to Lesley, and Lesley was working on the drawings, I know this is something that Lesley talked about too. It's like the contemplative and interactive aspects of making the cards.
Yeah, Lesley, would you like to speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we started this project, I was still living in Lawrence, and so it was special for me, not only because of lockdown and having like something to focus on, but learning more about where I had been and where Megan was, because Megan is the source of knowledge on all these plants and animals and features, and so I got to learn about them through her. And so I would read an essay that she had written about a particular creature, say, and then start to draft the drawing on it and kind of send versions back and forth with her. I'm thinking in particular about the bison. I remember when I drew the bison the first time around, Megan was like, "Ooh, this looks a little emaciated." And so I was like, "Okay, great. I got to think about this more and figure out exactly what these bison look like." And I ended up a little bit for the final form, but it was a really fun process because I always knew that Megan had this knowledge, and I got to experience it a few different times, but getting to really get in there with her and learn from her about this has been really, really fun. And also in so doing, like, myself learning about like what they look like and how the plants are structured and the habitats that these different creatures thrive in, whether it's on the ground or in a tree. Yeah.
Well, as somebody that works at a history museum, I really appreciate that attention to detail in trying to get something like scientific accuracy while still being artistically true to the project. So that's something that's really impressive.
Thanks.
Well, and I don't know if you know this, Lesley. I have this nerdy, I do readings for myself and do from different decks, but also I've been doing readings, especially from our deck, since it's, about to make its way into the world. And when I do readings, I actually draw I look at Lesley's drawings as an entry into the spirits and into the spirit of the deck, into a way of seeing the plants and animals too. So I feel like we're constantly collaborating and looking through each other's eyes. So
That's excellent. So we're starting to run out of time here, but I want to know, when will Prairie Divination be officially released, and where can people learn more about this set and order it? And is it available now, or will it be available soon?
So it's available for pre-order right now from our website, prairiedivination.com. And we anticipate shipping in like 3 to 4 weeks. It's at the printer right now. I'm probably going to send them an email today to bug them because I'm that person. But yeah, we expect 3 to 4 weeks. It's pre-order. Yeah, we're so excited to get it out. It's been, 5 years of us working on it, but this past 4 months or so, we've been really pushing it out into the world between our Kickstarter and then the pre-orders on the website. It's been very exciting to see the response to it.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing to hear that it's the product of 5 years of work. And just from my reading today, I can appreciate how much preparation and thought went into that. So that's great. So we've had some great feedback here from the audience. Here's an interesting question. Well, first of all, here's a great comment. Yay, can't wait to get my deck. Yeah. And then we have a question here from Jean or Jen. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Can you describe the process of how the cards are manufactured? Did you just choose your own printer? Kind of a technical question there, but I'm sure the audience would appreciate knowing more about that.
Definitely. This is a real part of the process. So we looked around for a printer for a very long time, trying to figure out exactly what we wanted to go for. We ended up taking a recommendation from the Spencer Museum, and we're going with, there's a printer in Minneapolis called Shopco, but they could do everything, including making the deck and then making the perfect bound book as well, which was oddly difficult to find someone who could do both of those things in-house.
Yeah. And then we have another question here. Were there any species that you considered putting in the deck but didn't make the cut?
Oh, so many. I mean, I was just out with the Kansas Land Trust at the Guest Prairie with some students from my writing and ecology class, and we saw prairie crayfish, and it was like, oh, they would have been beautiful in the deck. I mean, harriers, there are just so many. We really just had to do kind of a small sample because there's so many. So we're in no way saying that these are the most important, and in no way saying that this is wholly representative. But we really tried to get both, some of the things that you would expect in a tallgrass prairie deck, like a big blue stem, but also to capture things such as like prairie restoration. So the act of restoring formerly tilled land. So there's a lot. And we included some things like, white-tailed deer, which definitely live in not a million, but, live in all sorts of ecosystems. But, I don't know, you see them whenever you go out to the tallgrass prairie. So they're always there. And there are even some speculative cards too. I imagine the wolf back into our ecosystem. The Great Plains wolf is now extinct, but in an act of transformative imaginings, I imagined, and Lesley, I think, captured beautifully in this card, what would happen if we made space for the wolf to return, and what would happen? What would it mean for us to live to live as part of an ecosystem and in community with the wolf. So yeah. I hope that answers your question. There are a ton of things that I feel really sadly, processes, tons of people, like plants and animals, and that I would have,
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, and it seems like a good problem to have, that there's such a rich array of animals and plants that could be included.
Yeah. I mean, and part of it, we were thinking, we wanted to write about our place in the tallgrass prairie ecosystem, but we're hoping that it will inspire people who live, in this ecosystem to go out and to explore and to meet these people, these more than human persons on their own. But we're also hoping that it will inspire people in other ecosystems to go out and make their own relationships, right?
Yeah. That's really what it's all about, isn't it? Yeah. Well, this has been an amazing conversation, and I just want to thank you both, Lesley and Megan, for lending your time and hanging out with us this afternoon and doing a reading with me. It was an amazing experience.
Thank you so much, Will, and to everyone here.
Yeah, thank you. And yes, thanks to all of you in the audience for joining us today. We hope you'll acquire your own Prairie Divination set from prairiedivination.com. So you can commune more closely with the tallgrass prairie ecosystem, or as Megan said, like anywhere that you may be in the natural world. So with that, I'll just say thank you, everybody, and goodbye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.